Greetings, everyone. Again, it's I, Archbishop of Belmont, from the Noble House of Belmont, and the Archbishop of the Third Temple English Church of England. Our King Clifford Jefferson from the Royal House of Plantagenet, as well as the Queen, cannot attend this second part, but they are here in spirit, so we'll continue to keep doing our due diligence as heirs of one of the greatest kingdoms or empires that ever existed, which is the Empire of Albion, which you known as the Kingdom of England. So as heirs, like I said, we're supposed to be able to teach and bring this information to the forefront, so that way we don't forget what our ancestors have done, which is technically what we have done, and what we must do to rectify those sins, which is forgiveness. All right, and so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this part 2. I'm going to need some help on the reading on this one. All right. The Golden Age of Piracy. Sister Allen, would you like to go ahead and begin?
Sure can. The Golden Age of Piracy. The Golden Age of Piracy is a common designation for the period between the 1650s and the 1730s, when maritime piracy was a significant factor in the histories of the Caribbean, the United Kingdom, and Indian Ocean, North America, and West Africa.
Pause.
Yes.
Now, pay attention to this. Once again, it said the Golden Age of Piracy, so they must have been making a lot of money. I mean, no one's going to call something golden if it wasn't fruitful. All right. So the Golden Age of Piracy between the years of 1650 and 1730. Think about this, folks. Think about this. The locations: the Caribbean, the United Kingdom, Indian Ocean, North America, and West Africa. We already know in 3 of those territories who those so-called folks look. Actually, you would say 4. That's the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, North America, and West Africa. The only place that's right now folks are having a confusion is, who are the people in the United Kingdom? Well, let's break down the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom consists of England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So we can call that Great Britain, anciently Albion. The Golden Age of Piracy, as we see, is the age of them pirating the melanated people, us, on both sides. Both sides. We were the ones pirating, and we were the ones that's been kidnapped. And we're wondering, like, so how can we say that? Well, because today we know this, our blood has been mixed. There's a complete mixture of the blood. You do your DNA or whatever, or you do your surname, tracking back, you got all these different families, different people. On top of that, you start noticing some folks in the family, like, he didn't do too good. He was a bad blood. Absolutely. We got bad blood, what you call bad seeds today in our family, don't we? Folks that we wonder, like, said, damn, oh, excuse me, who created you? How did you come from our family? But then you start doing the backtracking and see who you come from. Oh, that's how you got in there. Bad blood. All right. Continue.
Histories of piracy often subdivide the Golden Age of Piracy into 3 periods. First period, the buccaneering period, approximately 1650 to 1680, characterized by Anglo-French seamen based in Jamaica and Tortuga, attacking Spanish colonies and shipping in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific.
Pause. Did it say Africans?
No.
It didn't say Africans, and it said approximately what time frame?
1650,
1680. These would be a time frame that many brothers and sisters don't even actually even think about. The 1600s, and the territory that they're saying characterized by Anglo-French seamen based in Jamaica and Tortuga. attacking Spanish colonies. What? Who are these people? Who are these so-called Anglo-French based in Jamaica? I mean, I'm gonna just kind of take an idea. They probably was us, but I don't know. I can be wrong. I mean, I do know Jamaican flag looks something like our flag. I mean, I could be wrong. It looks something like it. I do know a little bit about the history of Jamaica, know that it was underneath the Spanish colonies, territories at the time. I could be wrong. I mean, history says it, but could history be wrong? I mean, we do know the Spanish colonies did have a time doing what? Shipping so-called Negroes. I could be wrong, but that's what the records say. We're about to find out. All right, continue, Sister Allen.
Number 2, the pirate round, 1690s, associated with long distance voyages from the Americas to rob Muslim and East India Company and Red Sea.
No, you skipped something. Oh,
sorry. Associated with long distance voyages from the Americas to rob Muslim and East India Company targets in the Indian Ocean and Red Sea.
This is how far, once again, that this piracy is going. It's not like, remember, this is maritime. So it's not only happened over so-called here in the Americas, but it extending all the way over there to so-called the Indian Ocean, Red Sea territory, with the East Indian Company, which we know was started by who? The British. That's showing you, like, say, how far the extent this stuff was going down. And they were only dealing with the same specific people. They didn't say that all these were, South Americans that they're dealing with. They didn't say that these folks from Australia or Russia. No. Caribbean, United Kingdom, Indian Ocean, North America, West Africa. West Africa, to be exact. It didn't say South Africa, and it didn't say East Africa. It said West. All right. Continue, Sister Allen.
Number 3, the post-Spanish succession period, 1715 to 1726, when Anglo-American sailors and privateers left unemployment by the end of the War of the Spanish Succession, turned en masse to piracy in the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, the North American Eastern Seaboard, and the West African coast.
Pause. We already know what this was, and now at this point, this would start going into the Barbary Wars. We're not going to talk about that, but that started going into the Barbary Wars. It's like I said, so in 1715 to 1726, when the Anglo-American settlers and privateers, they no longer had no work. Of course, this is like what most troublemakers go do when they out of a job. They go look for somewhere else to get into trouble, where it's easier for them to continue to keep doing it. So where they go, they head south. And then they headed out to the Indian Ocean into so-called territory they call North America, and then so-called West Africa. So it was a circle, which we will call the whole territory of the so-called transatlantic slave trade. Okay. And now we see the transatlantic slave trade may have to be dealing with what? Piracy. Piracy. All right. And let's get to the last part of this, because I'm going to go ahead and start showing up the video. Right to. Okay, here we go. And Brother Scott, you want to go ahead and take this? The Pirates of the Era. You muted, Brother Scott.
Unmute.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now, Archbishop?
Yep.
Okay. Pirates of the Era. Many of the best known pirates in historical lore originate from this golden age of piracy. Black Sam Bellamy, captain of the Whydah galley, was lost in a storm off Cape Cod in 1717. Bellamy was popularly known as the Robin Hood of pirates and prided himself on his ideological justifications for piracy. Stead Bonnet, a rich Barbadian landowner turned pirate solely in search of adventure. Bonnet captained a 10-gun sloop named the Revenge and raided ships off the Virginia coast in 1717. He was caught and hanged in 1718. Henry Every, one of the few major pirate captains to retire with his loot without being arrested nor killed in battle. He is famous for capturing the fabulous, wealthy Mogul ship Ganji Iswahi in 1695. Yep. Oliver Levassor, aka Labuse, the only major French pirate in Nassau, who is often associated with Hornigold, Bellamy, Kennedy, and Taylor. William Fly, whose execution in 1726 is used by historian Marcus Rediker to mark the end of the Golden Age of Pirates. William Captain Kidd, executed for piracy at Execution Dock, London in 1701, is famous for the buried treasure he supposedly left behind. Edward Lowe, born in Westminster, was active 1721 to 1724, was never captured, and was notorious for torturing his victims before killing them. He would cut off ears, lips, and noses. Henry Morgan, a buccaneer who raided the Spaniards and took Panama City before burning it to the ground. He was to be executed in England, but was instead knighted and made governor of Jamaica. He died a natural death in 1688.
Now, pause 1 second here. Pause 1 second.
Wow.
First of all, this should take people back. The territories, the locations of all of the so-called of these great pirates. Who lived there? Look at these pirates' surnames.
Yes.
Hope everyone is paying attention to it, because just like Brother Scott just read, Henry Morgan, a buccaneer who raided the Spaniards, he said Panama City before burning to the ground. I mean, look at this. He burnt it to the ground. He was supposed to be hung, but he was knighted and made the governor of Jamaica. So what I'm saying is our people have done some stuff and was rewarded for it. But just because you were rewarded for it doesn't mean it was right. And like I said, look at the names. Look what they're coming from. Those surnames, you know, either some could have been stolen, but the fact that the origin of that surname, it speaks volumes. Continue, brother.
John Calico Jack Rackham, famous for his partnership with female pirates Anne Bonny and Mary Read, was captured, then hanged and gibbeted outside Port Royal, Jamaica in 1720.
Pause. Female pirates. We see them in the movies, but people never thought they really probably exist. They're real. And trust, believe, we got some sisters who can do some work. We've seen them. We've seen them. So it's
can't underestimate.
Never, yeah, exactly. Never estimate. Like I said, this has nothing to do with sex. It's about your mindset, intelligence, because intelligence comes in many different shapes, sizes, so-called colors, etc. But the point that we're making here is who these people were that were doing it and the territories, because the territories are going to let you know a lot more than you think, because then you can actually trace these people, their origins based off of that so-called territory. Supposed to be hung outside the Port Royal, Jamaica. Who are the people we keep talking about in so-called Jamaica today, or what they call Jamaica, or what was the ancient name? What they call N.America or something like that. I think that's what it is, N.America or N.America. But the fact that they're taking who they were these pirates, and we know Jamaica is mostly melanated people. Melanated people. So these are melanated pirates. And then once we trace the origin of that surname, it's going to tell us more than we want, than we need to know. Actually, exactly what we want to know. All right.
Point of interest.
Go ahead, CA.
If we've noticed that these territories are dealing in highly melanated people, it's also to be noted that these melanated people, see, we're trying to qualify that the peoples doing the pirating were also melanated people coming from Europe, Spanish, English, Anglo-French. What is it? The Anglo-French were in Jamaica. So all of these particular territories in the transatlantic slavery were of melanated descent and may have come from Europe, west of Africa, the Americas, Indian Ocean, etc. But it's clear to the fact that they all had a brown or dark hue, especially dealing around the equator and these very hot and humid locations. All right.
Well said.
And lastly, yes, most of the Jamaicans, you'll notice, have Irish surnames. So there were a lot of these inhabitants had located to these areas in 13, 14, 1500s with the expulsion of the Blackamoors, the Spanish Inquisition, etc. So although they had inhabited the territories of the Caribbean, North America, etc., they may have went there within the last 100 to 200 years due to the constant expulsion and criminalization of their culture via the Roman edicts. I yield.
Well said, CA. Well said. And as you can see, these wars or animosity, it's still there. It's still there. Our people, we still have this animosity. I mean, we have the animosity to that so-called, we'll say that culture or that territory, but you direct it to the so-called wrong people because it's actually you that did it. You have animosity to folks who had nothing to do with it. You did it. All right. Now, like CA said, pay attention to these names. Names mean a lot. I mean, and remember, we know names also can mean a person, place, or thing, or a description. For instance, the next brother name is what? Go ahead, Brother Scott.
Bartholomew Black Bart Roberts.
Black Bart.
Black Bart is considered by many to be the most successful Western pirate of all time, with over 400 ships captured.
Wow. Wow, Black Bart. And when we're going to do we're going to go ahead and do one more, one of the most important ones, why it's going to bring us to the rest of the lesson, is about to be because it's a specific thing, that name. Go ahead, Brother Scott.
Edward Blackbeard Teach. Fact, active from 1716 to 1718, is perhaps the most notorious pirate among English-speaking nations. Blackbeard's most famous ship was the Queen Anne's Revenge, named in response to the end of Queen Anne's War. He was killed by one of Lieutenant Robert Maynard's crewmen in 1718.
Pause. So we all have heard about the infamous Blackbeard, but no one ever told you how he looked besides what we saw on TV. Just so-called, he didn't look like us. But it only makes sense based off of what had been presented, who he was. Now, his name was Edward Teach. Let's go see where Mr. Edward Teach comes from. One of our handy dandy house of names. And for you folks who want to say, oh, you gotta go to house of names to qualify, yes, because these people do their research too. They wouldn't have this website up here to tarnish their integrity with this type of information. So thank them, and we do humbly. Who's up here? Want to read? Who's available? Oh, Sister Walker, I didn't even see you there. Sister Walker, I apologize. Sister Walker, why you do me the honors and read this?
Greetings. Teach, history, family crest, and coat of arms. The name is derived from the Middle English phrase "ash," meaning at or near the ash tree. Early origins of the Teach family. The surname Teach was first found in Suffolk, where they held a family seat at the Lords of the Manor. After the Battle of Hastings in 1066, William, Duke of Normandy, having prevailed over King Harold, granted most of Britain to his many victorious barons. It was not uncommon to find a baron or a bishop with 60 or more lordships scattered throughout the country.
Wow.
These he gave to his sons, nephews, and other junior lines of his family, and they became known as under-tenants. They adopted the Norman system of surnames, which identified the under-tenant with his holdings so as to distinguish him from the senior stem of the family. After many rebellious wars between barons, Duke Williams commissioned a census of all England to determine in 1086, settling once and for all who held which land. He called the census the Doomsday Book, indicating that those holders registered would hold the land until the end of time. Hence, conjecturally, the surname is descended from the tenant of the lands who was recorded in the Doomsday Book, census of 1086. They are believed to be of the same lines as the Tashers of Normandy, who was elevated to nobility in 1667 in Normandy.
Pause. So what we just read regarding Blackbeard. Let's go back to Mr. Blackbeard. Back to him. What it said about Blackbeard as being one of the most notorious pirates. And on top of that, he had a ship called the Queen's Anne's Revenge. So Blackbeard being, he's, as we know, it's the fact he going back to England underneath with the time with William the Conqueror, we can say Anglo-Normans. But now after 1189, everybody became English in that territory. Everybody, once you all came in and we all bred in, and after 1189, you were English. But that doesn't mean that that original blood where he come from wasn't still there. As we can see, his position, his family, as we see, goes back to nobility. He was noble blood. And you see, like I said, he worked in regards to the monarch. So let's go ahead and take a look at Queen Anne's Revenge. And then we're gonna go ahead and get to the video. And Sister Allen, you want Sister Walker, want to continue?
All right. Queen Anne's Revenge was an early 18th century ship, most famously used as a flagship by Edward Teach, better known by his nickname, Blackbeard. Although the date and place of the ship's construction are uncertain, it was originally believed she was built by a merchant service in Bristol, England in 1710 and named Concord. Later captured by French privateers and renamed La Concorde after several years service by French sailors, both a naval frigate and a merchant vessel, much of the time as a slave trading ship. She was captured by Blackbeard in 1717. Blackbeard used the ship for less than a year, but captured numerous prizes under her as his flagship. In May 1718, Blackbeard ran the ship around aground at Topsail Inlet, now known as Beaufort Inlet, North Carolina, United States, in the present Carteret County. After the grounding, her crew and supplies were transferred to smaller. I can't see it after that.
Can you see now?
Yes, after smaller ships. In 1996, Intersail Inc., a private firm, discovered the remains of a vessel that was later determined to be Queen Anne's Revenge, which was added to the National Register of Historic Places.
Pause. Okay, so as we can see, based off of what it says, Queen Anne's Revenge, it was built for merchants in England. But remember, England wasn't supposed to be having no so-called slavery on English soil. Why is there creating a so-called slave ship in England? Is it probably because we're underneath a new occupation, be it the British monarchs who brought in slavery? All right. So, and it said the ship was mostly used for slave trading. So the pirates were slave traders. Who else were doing it? It had to be something grimy. And at this point
of interest.
Those people who you were so-called trading.
Yeah. The different crown monarchies were sanctioning slave trading and pirating. They were privateers when they were sanctioned by different crowns. French privateers, English privateers, until they lost their sanction from the crown, and then they became pirates. So pirating is illegal, but privateer is a legal sanctioned act by their governments.
Absolutely, exactly. On top of that, point of interest, they're paid to do it. They were paid, they were contracted to do this. They weren't just saying like, you know, we want to go ahead and start just pirating, just getting people and selling them into. No, they were getting contracted to do this. And only folks really at this time to so-called have, like CA said, who had money, was those so-called monarchs who had an agenda. And at this time, the monarchs that had the agenda were still running or via the Roman Catholic regime. It didn't matter who or what kingdom at that time was doing it. They all still were the product of the Roman Catholic yoke. All right, and let's go ahead and get to, to the video so we can go ahead and peep out. Because once again, when you get the chance to actually see this stuff, it kind of puts your mind into the proper mindset of understanding why they allow us to constantly keep watching the stuff on TV, and yet we're not actually understanding that it had everything to do with us.
The ship is ours.
Once again, people, this is Pirates of the Caribbean, for those who don't know, but I'm quite sure you all do. And remember, forked beard is a representation of the Berbers.
I be placed in a bewilderment. There I were, resting. And upon a sudden, I hear an ungodly row on deck. Sailors abandoned their posts without orders, without leave. Men before the mast, taking the ship for themselves. That first mate.
Mutiny, Captain.
Again.
Mutiny.
Fine. Behold, mutineers. Now we know the answer to that, do we not? Mutineers.
apologize if it's breaking up. Is the audio? Second. You know, if it's still breaking up.
Better.
Captain, I wish to report a mutiny.
Okay. And then the second one, I'm gonna go ahead and show. This one says, "Are we not king's men?"
Sir. I, Captain, sir, I am unhappy to report rumors, sir, among the crew as to our destination.
Shut your trap and make way. That's the way of it then.
No disrespect, sir.
What do the men fear? Say it. Speak the words.
White Cap Bay.
Aye, White Cap Bay. Every worthless seaman fears the name, and rightly so, though few know why or dare to ask.
See, the story's true.
Say what robs you of your staunch-hearted so forever leave to the wider fields of fancy.
Mermaids, Captain.
Aye, mermaids. Seagulls, devilfish, dreadful in hunger for flesh of man. Mermaid waters, that be our path. Cling to your soul, Gibbs, as mermaids be given. Take the rest. To the bone.
Steady! Steady, man! Find your courage! Or be ready to purpose your fear. Save yourselves! Man overboard!
Nay, a deserter.
Come about!
Nay. Gentlemen, I shall not ask any more of any man than what that man can deliver, but I do ask this. Are we not king's men? On the king's mission? I did not notice any fear in the eyes of the Spanish as they passed us by. Are we not king's men? Aye! Hands aloft and bear away! Stave on ahead to White Cap Bay! White Cap Bay!
All right. And the purpose, like I said, of those clips was kind of for you, once again, to kind of get yourself in the mindset of how these people were, or how the pirates were, how they act, you know, their mannerisms. So as you see, slavery had to been, it was why it was gruesome? It was because the type of people who was running it. And as you see how they was running by the monarchs, those monarchs at the time. So slavery was not started just by regular, you know, little people in a little village, whatever, doing it. It was done by monarchs.
Point of interest.
Go ahead, Sia.
Yes, and like we discussed earlier, qualifying statement that privateering is sanctioned by the crown, whether it be France or England. It's called privateering.
Not England.
Pirating is not
Britain.
sanctioned by the crown, but it still takes place in the same time frame of this era. When you think about cargo and you think about the business, everyone, remember slavery, as it were, chattel slavery is legal in the colonies. So these particular acts being done on the seas were legal and sanctioned by the monarchs of the time as a commercial buying, selling, and trading of goods and services.
Exactly.
So if I could for a minute ask you all, the viewer, what is it that you are doing now here and today where you may compromise yourselves or your brother and sister for the sake of policy, procedure? How many of our brothers and sisters are shot down in the street and because they are saying things like they know their rights, but they have no access to the rights that they feel they know?
Mm-hmm.
The subject status or the subjugation or the subdifudation of not only their physical bodies and their estate in relation to the municipalities which have been taken over during the Township Act by commanders of militias and such have created a piracy over your estate. This is the connection that we are bringing to you in the form of this, these examples, this history, and this reference. Your commercial life, your life you live now currently is a commercial styled life. And in that commercial styled life is a form of piracy sanctioned by your local governments. What you do is to figure out these chattel systems which have caused you harm and conflict, not only with your physical body, but your family structure, your relationship with society, your economic position in life, and your lack of acknowledging or exerting your nobility and your family's hereditaments as it relates to entailed estate. I yield the floor.
Well said, C.A. Murphy. And like he said, what's going on, those same pirates, after they no longer, had works on the seas, they came on land. And those pirates start working once again for whatever monarch or whoever is at that time who they needed to continue to keep doing this work for. Because if they didn't have no work, what would be for the point for them to exist? But they did have work. And that's when now they start doing more what? More migration from within the colonies to inland. And that's what we're going to go ahead and talk about on part 3 regarding our trafficking, the pirates, as well what happened to those original people. All right, so stay tuned, part 3. Peace.